Today I am going to discuss about section 26 of the Transfer of Property Act. Section 26 is most important question for sake of exam. Many a times they ask this. Let me give you the important questions under section 26 of the Transfer of Property Act. Write down the important questions under section 26. Law favors early vesting of property. Law favors early vesting of property rather than divesting. Rather than divesting. Explain. One more question. Doctrine of acceleration. Doctrine of acceleration. And doctrine of Cyprus. Doctrine of Cyprus. Here, section 26 of the Transfer of Property Act, which deals with the fulfillment of condition precedent. And before, in the previous class, I discussed about section 25. I think you people remember section 25 of the Transfer of Property Act, which deals with the it is a conditional transfer. That is the conditional transfer. We have studied the different kinds of conditions. 3 kinds of conditions: condition precedent, condition subsequent, and collateral condition. Here we are discussing about fulfillment of condition precedent. Fulfillment of condition precedent, that is here fulfillment of condition precedent, as I told you earlier itself, that is the transferee. When he receives the property from the transferor puts certain conditions to the transferee. That is the transferee, he has to fulfill certain conditions put by the transferor. It is a condition precedent. Then only the property will be transferred to the transferee. Then only he will get all the absolute right or interest, title in the property. It's the entire bundle of rights will go to transferee after the condition precedent, after he fulfills the condition. That is the fulfillment of condition precedent. And let us know what is doctrine of Cyprus. Here, section 26, which deals with the doctrine of Cyprus. Here, doctrine of Cyprus means on a transfer of property with condition precedent, the condition precedent may be substantially fulfilled. When the condition precedent has been put by the transferor to the transferee, that is, the transferee has fulfilled only the substantial part, maybe substantially fulfilled. Then the law favors the vesting of property and not the divesting. Here, in a condition precedent, the condition need not be fulfilled, need not be fully fulfilled or fulfilled to a greater extent. The law considers the substantial fulfillment of the condition. Substantial fulfillment has complete fulfillment. Though the transferee has completed only the substantial part of the condition, but also the law, that is the law considers the substantial fulfillment of the condition precedent has complete fulfillment. Then the property passes to the transferee. This is called doctrine of Cyprus. Let me explain once again. Here there are two parties, as you all know, that is the transferor and the transferee. There is a transferor. When he puts certain conditions to the transferee, that is then only he gets the property. That is the condition precedent. That is, the transferee has to fulfill certain conditions put by the transferor, and then he will get the property. He will get the right over the property, absolute right. But here the transferee has fulfilled only substantial condition, not the full. Entirely is not fulfilled. It is not fulfilled fully. He has fulfilled only substantially. At that time, the law considers the substantial fulfillment as a complete fulfillment, and then the property process to the transferee. This is called the doctrine of Cyprus. Here, let me give you one illustration for this. A is a person. It transfers rupees 50,000 to B only after the fulfillment of a condition. B shall marry with the consent of C, D and E. I think you came to know the illustration here. A is transferring a amount of rupees 50,000 to B. That is only after the fulfillment of a condition. He has put certain condition. Let us see what is the condition. Before that, he has to fulfill the condition. Then only he will get the amount. That is the 50,000 rupees. Yeah, let us see in this illustration what is the condition is put by the A to the B. Here, A puts the condition that B shall marry with the consent of C, D and E. Here, B has to take the consent of all the three, that is the C, D and E, for his marriage. Only then B will get the amount of rupees 50,000 from the A. Here, Mr. B took the consent of C and D. Here, B, he took the consent of C and D, but he could not secure the permission of the E. He took only the consent of two parties. He did not take the consent or permission from the consent of the other party. That is the E. Here, since he expired, here he has expired. Before giving the permission, he has expired here E. So he took the permission from the only C and D. Here B has fulfilled not the entire condition has not fulfilled. Fully has not fulfilled the condition. He has fulfilled the condition substantially and not completely. But here law considers the condition precedent has been fulfilled completely and B will get the amount of rupees 50,000 from the A. Here what the law considers in this illustration here? The law considers in this illustration is though the person has completed the condition precedent substantially, but the law considers here he has completed the fulfillment, fulfilled the condition completely, and that's the B will get the amount of rupees 50,000. That's what the doctrine of Cyprus. Now, I am going to discuss about section 35 of the Transfer of Property Act. What does section 35 says here? Section 35, the most important question, repeatedly they have asked in the exam. Please note down that it's a must question, section 35, which deals with the doctrine of election. Doctrine of election. Here section 35 which deals with the election when necessary. Election when necessary. Please, before that, please take the important questions which comes under section 35. Please note down. Discuss the doctrine of election or there any difference between Indian and English doctrine of election, or there any difference between Indian and English doctrine of election. Next question. Write a note of doctrine of election. And one more. Explain the principle laid down in Cooper versus Cooper. Explain the principle laid down in Cooper versus, this is the case. Explain the principle laid down in Cooper versus Cooper. These are the questions which comes under section 35 of the Transfer of Property Act. Let me explain you what does section 35 says. Section 35 is the election when necessary. It says that it deals with the doctrine of election. Here, what is this election means here? You all know what is election. But under Transfer of Property Act, the election is different here. Election means that is a choosing. That is the owner of the property who is put to election. That is the owner of the property. Who is the the person who is the owner of the property, that owner is put to election. That is the, here under section 35 it is the transferee, but here is the owner of the property, he is put to election. Here that is here the meaning of election is, election means choosing between two inconsistent or alternative rights is the meaning of the election under section 35 of the Transfer of Property Act. Choosing between two inconsistent or alternative rights. Here, when there is a clear intention that he should not enjoy both, at that time, that is the owner of the property is put to election. He has to choose one of the right among the two rights. That is called doctrine of election. Here, doctrine of election is based on equity. Is applied to every species of instruments, whether deed or will, and to every kind of property, whether it is immovable or immovable. But this topic is not practical in the present time. It was practiced in the olden days. That is the doctrine of election. But now it is not practical. That is, I'll give you one example for the doctrine of election. By this illustration, you will clearly understand what is doctrine of election here. Here, where some money is gifted to A. Some money, some amount which is gifted to A, and in lieu of it, A is required to transfer his house to B. Here, I am going to gift some amount to A, and in lieu of it, A is required to transfer his house to the B. Here, who is put to election here? Not me. Here the A is put to election. A is the owner of the property. He is put to election. What is the election here? As I told you, there will be two rights. Among that, he has to choose one right. Here, A is put to election. That is, here A would not be allowed to retain his house and also to take the gift from me. Here, A cannot enjoy both the rights. If he wants to retain his house, he has to give back the gift. He cannot take the gift from me. Otherwise, if he needs the gift from me, he has to give his property to the B. Here, A, that is the owner of the property, will have to choose either. There will be two rights. Among that, he has to choose either one. That is, taking of the gift from me, in which case he must transfer his house to B, or retain his house, in which case he must relinquish the benefit of gift. He must give back the benefit of gift when he needs to retain his house with himself. Here, that is the A, he is put to election. A shall be put to election. That is, doctrine of election is based on the equitable principle, under which he may not be allowed to approve that part of an instrument which is beneficial to him and disapprove that part which goes against him. That is, when a person takes some benefit under a deed or instrument, he must also bear a burden. He must also bear its burden also. Here, duty to election, duty to elect arises only where the person acts in one and the same capacity. He is a person who gets the benefit and also is the owner of the property. That is a person, he takes the benefit, he gets the benefit and is also the owner of the property. That is at that time only that is a duty of election arises. That's what the doctrine of election. Here, I will give you the case law here. That is the important case law. Cooper versus Cooper. Cooper versus Cooper. Here in this case, that is the principle. The principle which is laid down in Cooper versus Cooper is that E who accepts a benefit, E who accepts a benefit under a deed must adopt the whole contents of the instrument, must adopt the whole content of the document, must conform to all its provisions and renounce all the rights that are inconsistent with it. Means where a person takes some benefit under a deed or instrument, he must also bear its burden. That was a principle which was held in the Cooper versus Cooper case. And here, essentials. There are certain essentials which are covered under section 35 of the Transfer of Property Act. There are 3 essentials. What it says? Let us see one by one. Where a person, the essentials under section 35. Where a person professes to transfer a property not his own. Here, section 35 applies where a person professes to transfer a property not his own. He is not the owner of the property, but he professes to transfer the property to another person. Here, the meaning of the profess. What is this professes? Professes means here. Professes means purports or make contract. That is, since such person is not the owner of the property, he cannot transfer the property, but he can contract or make an arrangement for transferring of the property which he does not own. Is called as the meaning of the professes. For example, I am not owner of this property, but I make a contract, I enter into contract or agreement, or I make an arrangement for transferring of the property which is not mine property. That is called as the professes. Means he purports or to make a contract to transfer the property not his own is called as the professes. Here section 35 applies only where the person professes to transfer property not his own property, but it is others' property. I will give you an example here. A may profess to transfer a property to B which he owned by C, and also confer on C a benefit of ₹1000. In this, A is not transferring the C's property. He is simply professing. What is the meaning of professing here? Contracting to transfer a property which he does not own. Here, A is not the transferor, but for the sake of convenience, A may be called as a transferor. Here, for section 35, I will give you one more illustration here. You will easily understand by this. In this illustration, father is the owner of a mango garden. Mango garden. Father is the owner of a mango garden. Son is the owner of a bungalow. Father is the owner of a mango garden and son is the owner of the bungalow. Here, father creates transfer of property as follows. Let us see how he transfers a property. Father. Here, the father says that I am transferring your bungalow as a gift to my daughter. Father says to son that I am transferring your bungalow as a gift to my daughter, and I am transferring my mango garden to you absolutely. Here, father is the transferor of whose property? Of not his property. Father is transferring the son's property. It is a bungalow to his daughter. Son is the transferee. Here, son is the transferee. Son, here who is put to election here? Son. Son is put to election. Son has to make the election between his own bungalow and the mango garden. Son, if he accepts the mango garden, he has a duty to give up his bungalow. it goes to the daughter. Here, when the property, that is the bungalow, goes to the daughter, here she is called as a refractory donee. Here she is called as the refractory donee. When the bungalow goes to the daughter, that is the daughter is called as a refractory donee. And if son refuses the benefit from his father, son does not want the benefit which the father is giving. Son refuses the benefit and retains his bungalow, and he needs to retain his bungalow with himself. Then the daughter is called disappointed donee. When the daughter gets the property, she is the refractory donee. But when the daughter does not get the bungalow, that is when the son himself retains the bungalow, here the daughter is called as a disappointed donee. Here let us know, that is what does Indian law says and what does English law says. To this illustration, let me explain you. As per Indian law, under such circumstances, the benefit of the mango garden goes to the disappointed donee. Under Indian law, the benefit of the mango garden goes to the disappointed donee. But as per English law, the transferor gets his property. As per English law, that is the transferor gets his property. Now, here as I told you the essentials, the first essential what it says here, when a person professes to transfer a property not his own. As I told you, there is a person who transfers here, who makes a transfer. He is not the owner of the property, but for the purpose he is called as a transferor here, but he is not the owner of the property. Just is not transferring the property. He is just professing to transfer. Professing means here agreement or making a contract to transfer the property of not his own. And lieu of this transfer, the transferor confers certain benefit upon the owner of the property. Here, transferor is not the owner, but the transferor gives certain benefit to the owner of the property. Next, the third essential is the two things, that is transfer of property and conferring of the benefit, forms part of the same transaction. Forms part of the same transaction. Here, the two things, which are the two things here? Transfer of property, transferring of the property, and conferring of the benefit forms part of the same transaction. Here, that is the owner of the property is getting the benefit, and he is transferring the property. The owner of the property, when he is transferring his property, in lieu of that, he gets certain benefit from the transfer. It must form part of the same transaction. Then it is called as a doctrine of election. These are the essentials under section 35. Now I am going to discuss about modes of election. Mode of election. Here, mode of election, there are two modes. There are two modes of election. Here, election may be express or implied. What is this express election? That is, owner of the property may express his intention in clear and specific words of election. It is final one. It is called as a express election. And what is this implied election? That is, the intention of the owner may also be inferred from his act. May also be inferred from his act or conduct. is not expressly, is not clearly, is not mentioning anything. That is the owner of the property is not clearly mentioning. Just by his act or by conduct, it is deemed to be an implied election. That is, the intention of the owner may also be inferred from his act or conduct is called as the implied election. And if it is in clear words, owner of the property, when he is expressly clearly mentioning in a proper clear words, at the time it is an express election. And next let me explain about no election. What is this no election? Under these two cases where there is no need of election at all. That is, first, where the transfer is gratuitous. What is this gratuitous means? It is without consideration. Under Transfer Property Act, whenever the property is transferred, it must be for certain consideration. But here, the first point it says that where the transfer is gratuitous, where the transfer has been made, but it is without gratuity. It is without gratuitous means without consideration. At that time, there is no election. There is no need of election. That is, in it, let me explain the first point where the transfer is gratuitous. Here it says that in a transfer of property, there is no consideration in the form of money, property or other kind of benefit, then the transferee did not make any election. Then the transferee, it is the transferee here is, that is the owner of the property need not make any election. I will give you a simple illustration so that you can understand where the transfer is gratuitous. In this illustration, father transfers the bungalow of his son to the daughter, and in the same transaction confers 100 tons of love and affection. Your father is transferring the son's bungalow to his daughter. In the same transaction, the father is conferring 100 tons of love and affection to his son. Love and affection are not equivalent to the material value, and love and affection not considered as a benefit, and it is not a consideration also. And it is a gratuitous transfer. Gratuitous transfer, it is without consideration. Here, son is the transferee and need not make any election. Here, there is no need of making election by the transferee. That is the son. The son can keep quiet without making the election. Here, that is the son can keep quiet. That is called as the where the transfer is gratuitous. There is no need of making election by the owner of the property. Next, second point, that is death of the transferor before election. Death of the transferor before election. Here, death of the transferor means, as I told you earlier itself, the transferor means he is not the owner of the property, just is professing to transfer the property of the owner. So for this purpose here is called as a transferor, but he is not the owner here. Here, death of the transferor before election, before he is electing, that is before the election is made by the owner of the property, before that there is a transferor dies. There is no need of election by the owner of the property. Let me explain this. When a person transferred the property of the transferee to the third person and conferred a benefit on the transferee has not made any election. Here the transferee has not made any election, and suddenly the transferor dies. Then also there is no question of election. Here, I am not the owner of the property, but I am going to transfer the property of the other person, of the transferee. But in this case, I am called as a transferor and he is called as a transferee. I am professing to transfer the property of the other person to third person. That before that, if I die, there is a transferee. There is no need of making election by the transferee. Here, transferee has not made any election here, and suddenly, if the transferor dies, then also there is no question of election by the owner of the property. It is a transferee. Here, let me give you one illustration similar to that which I have given earlier for the way the transfer is gratuitous. The father and son illustration itself. In this case, that is a death of the transferor before election. Death of the transfer before election. The illustration is, father transferred the bungalow of the son to the daughter and conferred his mango garden to the son. Father gave 1 year time to the son to make an election. Here father, he transferred the bungalow of the son to his daughter and conferred his mango garden to the son. Here father gave 1 year time to the son to make an election. Unfortunately, here the father dies within 1 month of the transfer. So, there is no question of making election because of the absence of the living person to the transfer of property. As we all know, both parties must be in existence, the transfer and transferee. Here the transferor is the father. He dies before, it is within 1 month of the transfer he dies. But here the father has given the time, it is a one year time he has given the period to the son to elect here. Either he needs either to keep the bungalow with himself, to retain the bungalow with himself, or to take the benefit of that is father is giving the mango garden, to take the benefit of the mango garden. Here when the father dies, there is no need of election here by the son. So there is no question of making election because of the absence of living person to the transfer of property. Section 38 of the Transfer of Property Act, which is with the transfer of immovable property by authorized persons only under certain circumstances. Here, transferring of the immovable property by whom? By not the owner. Here is not the owner who is transferring the immovable property under section 38. Here under section 38, the person who transfers the property is the authorized person. Only under the certain circumstances he is the authorized person. We have to know here who is the authorized persons, under which circumstances they can transfer the immovable property. Here, section 38 explains the transfer of property by non-owners. Non-owner means they are not the owners, but they are authorized to transfer the property. Here, it is authorized persons under section 38 is, that is the guardian of a minor's property or karta of a Hindu joint family property. They are all the authorized persons who can sell the property. But under certain special circumstances, they are having the authority to transfer the immovable property. That's what section 38 which deals with it. Here, generally the owner of an immovable property can transfer the property to other person because he is having all the bundle of rights. He is the absolute owner, so he can transfer to anybody. He can transfer, the owner can do anything with the property. It is, he can sell, gift, lease or mortgage. He can do anything whatever he wishes. But non-owner generally cannot transfer the property to others. Non-owner means he is not the owner. He is only having the authority to transfer. Generally he cannot transfer the property to others, but under special circumstances he can transfer the property. Here, let us see what are the essentials of the section 38. As we all know, who is authorized person? Authorized person means it is the karta of the Hindu joint family property or it is guardian of the minor's property. They are all the authorized persons. They're not the owner, but they're having authority to transfer the property under certain circumstances. There are three essentials. The first essential is the existence of certain circumstances. There must be existence of certain circumstances. Then only the authorized persons can transfer the property. Existence of certain circumstances. What is the certain circumstances here? Necessity. There must be some necessity. Then only they are having the authority to transfer the property. That is necessity to feed the poor people, orphans, or necessity to provide marriage expenses of the daughter, of the family. These are all the special circumstances where the person is having the authority to transfer the property. These are the certain circumstances. The second essential is transfer of immovable property for valid consideration. Transfer of immovable property for valid consideration. That is transferring of the for valid consideration means it must be made, must be a price in the form of money. That is, the consideration means something in return it must be paid. That is, must be a price in the form of money, such as sale price or mortgage money paid by the transferee to the transferor. The transfer should not be free here. The transfer which is made should not be free. It must not be free or not gratuitous. It must be for some consideration. It is a transfer of immovable property for the valid consideration. Next is reasonable care, good intention. This is the third essential under section 38. Reasonable care, good intention. If all the above essentials are fulfilled, then the transfer of property by authorized persons is valid. If all these essentials are fulfilled, then the transferring of the property by the authorized persons is considered as a valid transfer. Here, law protects the transferee of such property. Here, there is one case law for this. Case law, Hanuman Parshad Pandey versus Babu Munraj Konvery. See, this case comes under the section. This case comes under the third essential. That is the reasonable care, good intention. In this case, the manager of an infant's estate. In this case, that is a manager of an infant estate mortgaged the property. In this case, the court held that the lender is bound to inquire into the necessities of the loan and to satisfy himself as to the needs of the money. This has been held in this case. This is for the section 38. Any person any person who is the owner of the property is an absolute owner. He is having all the rights to transfer the property, absolutely or conditionally, as we all know. But here, transfer of immovable property by authorized persons. Here, section 38 which deals with the transferring of immovable property only by the authorized persons. When they can transfer, only under certain circumstances they can transfer. And they can transfer under certain circumstances. It must be for valid consideration only. And it must be with reasonable care, and it must be, it is a authorized person must be having the good intention. Then he can transfer under certain circumstances. It is a valid. Then, let me go to section 41. Section 41 of the Transfer of Property Act, which deals with the transfer by ostensible owner. This section is most important section for sake of exam. Please note down the important questions which comes under section 41. Let me tell you. The first question, write a note on transfer by ostensible owner. Write a note on transfer by ostensible owner. Next question. Who is ostensible owner? Question mark. When can a transferee from him will get a good title against the real owner? Against the real owner. What is the next question. What is the doctrine of holding out? What is the doctrine of holding out? Take down next question. What is Benami transfer of property? What is Benami transfer of property? Now here, let me explain what the section 41 of the Transfer Property Act which deals with. Here it says that transfer by ostensible owner. Here, who is called as an ostensible owner? First we have to know the meaning of the ostensible owner. Here, under section 41, whose rights will be protected under section 41 is that is a transferee, that is a person who purchases the property from the owner. That is a transferee's right is protected under section 41 of the Transfer of Property Act. Please note down, under section 41, transferee's right is protected. Here, real owner, the person who is the real owner, cannot claim the property from the transferee. Here, under section 41, there are three parties. One is the real owner, absolute owner, and the transferee. Here, before that, we have to know who is ostensible owner. Ostensible owner is one who has all the indicta of ownership without being the real owner. He is having all the indicta of ownership without being the real owner, means it looks like a real owner but is not the real owner. He is called as the ostensible owner. A transfer from the ostensible owner is protected against the real owner under the doctrine of holding out, embodied in section 41 of the Transfer of Property Act. Here, as I told you, the transferee's right is protected. Here, in this section, that is the right of the two innocent parties comes into conflict. Here, that is the property which is owned by here there are three parties A, B, C. The property which is owned by A. Here the property which is owned by A. The property owned by A. That is the real owner. A is, in this illustration, A is the real owner, but B is allowed. But here B is allowed by A. Here A is the real owner, B is the ostensible owner. B is allowed by A to appear as the owner in the eyes of law, in the eyes of public, and taking advantage of this, B sells the property of the A to C. By taking advantage of this, B sells the property of A to C. Here, C is a bona fide transferee, is a purchaser, bona fide purchaser with a good intention, he purchases. Is a bona fide purchaser. Here the question arises in this example is whether A can recover, whether in this illustration the question arises here is that is the real owner A, whether he can recover the property from the C, from the transferee. C is the transferee, whether A can recover the property from the C. The owner rendered the fraud. By here, the real owner, he rendered the fraud by holding the B as the owner. So here who has to suffer? That is the real owner himself has to suffer. That is the A has to suffer in this case. As I told you under section 41, whose right is protected here? That is a C. It is a purchaser. That is a transferee's right is protected. And here A has to suffer in this case. And this is the illustration. It is a transfer by ostensible owner. Section 41, which deals with the transferring of the immobile property by ostensible owner. Who is ostensible owner? He is having all the intent of ownership, but he is not the real owner. There are certain essential conditions for section 41. It is for the doctrine of holding out. That is, other person has the owner, the real person has to suffer. The following conditions should be fulfilled under section 41. Let us see which are the conditions, which are the essentials under section 41. Here, the transferor should be the ostensible owner of the property. That is, a transferor should be the ostensible owner of the property and he must not be the real owner. Second essential is the ostensible owner should be holding the property with the consent. The ostensible owner should be holding the property with the consent of the real owner, with express or implied consent of the real owner. The third essential is the transferee, that is a purchaser, should have paid the consideration amount and acted with reasonable care and good faith. These are the three essentials under section 41. Here, the person who transfers the property, that is a transferor, must be the ostensible owner, and the ostensible owner should be holding the property with the consent of the real owner. That is, it may be express or implied consent of the real owner. And the transferee, it is who purchases the property, he should have paid the consideration, and he must act it with reasonable care and good faith. It is an honest belief. These are the three essentials of the section 41. In this, under section 41, the burden of proof lies on the transferee. That is, he has to prove. That is, the burden of proof is upon the transferee to show that he is a purchaser in good faith without the knowledge of the real status of the title. This is the burden of proving by the transferee who purchased the property. If all these above essentials are fulfilled, then the law is going to protect the transferee under section 41. Here, let us see what is the consent. That is the express and implied consent. Here, under transfer of property, there is a transfer of property must be made by an ostensible owner with express or implied consent of the real owner. But it must be a free consent. It must not be by force, coercion, undue influence. It must be free consent of the real owner. Here, Benamidar. That is, Benamidar. Who is the Benamidar here? Ostensible owner is the Benamidar. He obtains the consent of the real owner by fraud, force, coercion or undue influence and the consent is not free, and this section 41 cannot apply when the consent is from force, undue influence, fraud. Here, section 41 does not apply where the ostensible owner transfers the property of the minor real owner. If the real owner is a minor, at that time if the ostensible owner transfers the property of the minor real owner, at that time section 41 will not apply. And what is this express consent and implied consent? Here, the consent is said to be express And consent of the real owner is expressed if it is given in clear and specific words, authorizing the ostensible owner to make the transfer. It's called as an express consent. And your implied consent is implied if the real owner knows that the Benamidar is dealing with this property, and if it were his own but remains silent or acquiescence, that is a silence, at that time it is an implied consent. That is, the real owner knows that he is selling his property. That is, the Benamidar selling the real owner's property, and also that is the real owner is keeping silent. At that time it is an implied consent which is given by the real owner. These are the two kinds of consent. Here, silent may also amount to consent only, where the real owner is aware of his rights. In this section, the transferee or the mortgagee is, in this section, that is the section 41, who is protected? That is, the transferee's right is protected under section 41. Here, as we all know, that is, every owner of a immovable property must be careful about their properties. If they sleep over their properties, some other persons may transfer to some other third person. The law does not want to protect the real owner. This is explained. This is explained effectively in the famous case called Ram Kumar versus McQueen. This has been explained in the famous case called Ram Kumar versus McQueen. It is 1872. Let me tell the facts of the case here. In this case, it is MacDonald. MacDonald purchased some property in Calcutta in the name of his wife called Bunnu Bibi. MacDonald purchased some landed property in Calcutta in the name of his wife Bunnu Bibi. He had a daughter by name McQueen. Yeah, Donald had a daughter named McQueen. The sale deed was in the name of Bunnu Bibi, his wife that is, and used to manage the properties. Later on, during the life of the MacDonald, Bunnu Bibi sold the properties to Ram Kumar. Sold the properties to Ram Dhoni. Here Ram Dhoni is the father of Ram Kumar. After the death of Bunnu Bibi, after the death of Bunnu Bibi, that is the wife, McQueen filed a suit against the Ram Dhoni, this is the purchaser, claiming the properties on the ground that her father had left a will in her favor, and her father was the real owner, not a Bunnu Bibi, who was merely a Benamidar. Bunnu Bibi was only a Benamidar. Here, Ram Dhoni, that is a purchaser, pleaded that, he took a defense that he was a bona fide owner without notice of Benami titles of the Bunnu Bibi seller. And in this case, the Calcutta High Court decided in favor of the McQueen. Calcutta High Court decided in favor of the McQueen. Decided in favor of the McQueen, that is wherein Ram Kumar, that is son of Ram Dhoni, he is now substituted in place of his father, went on appeal to the Privy Council, which reversed the judgment of the Calcutta High Court and decided in favor of the Ram Kumar. Privy Council decided in favor of the Ram Kumar here.